Hi, I'm Chris, welcome back to FRAG-MENTAL, thanks for joining me. I decided to buy the current top 10 bestsellers from Perfume Parlour. Are they worthy of being in the top 10? Let's get them rated. This is not a sponsored video. Perfume Parlour have no idea I'm making this video. These are the videos I made when I first started my channel. If you have been watching my videos from day one, you'll know that I started with Perfume Parlour videos, and that's probably the reason why you started watching my channel, because you were interested in finding out a little bit more. I'm not really doing that many Perfume Parlour videos anymore, partly because I'm not buying them as much, because when I started my channel I was buying lots of them because I didn't really have any other fragrances to talk about, and Perfume Parlour was a great way for me personally to get into smelling lots of different fragrances, smelling lots of different niche fragrances that I wouldn't have been able to afford. These days the channel's grown, I'm in a privileged position where I do get sent quite a few fragrances, so I've got much more fragrant content to make videos on, which is why I don't just focus on Perfume Parlour, but I like to dip back in and go back to the roots now and then. Something that you have to be aware of with Perfume Parlour is their catalogue is so vast, the choice is so great, that not every single fragrance they do is going to be an exact copy of the original. Some of them are quite close, some of them are a little bit further away, shall we say. It's a case of trial and error. So I just tend to buy the smaller 13mm spray sizes just so I can buy quite a lot of them and see which ones really stand out to me. And at between sort of £5 and £8 per 13mm EDP spray, it's a reasonably cheap way of finding out which ones are really the good ones. Even if you get one that isn't that close to the original, even if it's only 50% there, it's still going to be a nice fragrance, it's still going to be a wearable fragrance. So even the ones that aren't that close, it's not a waste of money if you end up with them. What I did was go into Perfume Parlour's website and sort their men's fragrances into the top 10 best selling. I was just interested in what the popular ones are. I did order these a couple of weeks ago, and since then this top 10 bestseller list has shuffled around a little bit, but most of them are still in the top 10, and if they're not still the top 10 bestsellers, they're still right up there in terms of the most popular Perfume Parlour fragrances. At the time of purchasing, Perfume Parlour's version of my most complimented fragrance of all time was at number 10, so I was very eager to try Mirror XLV. The product code on this one is 1509. This is a version of Amouage's Reflection 45, which is a powdery, earthy, creamy scent. Reflection 45 is one of my all-time favourite fragrances because it takes everything that's great about the original Reflection Man, but it adds a bit of a dirty earthiness, which for me just gives the fragrance even more attitude. I was pretty surprised to see Perfume Parlour's version in the top 10 because Amouage are a fragrance house known for their high quality, known for their naturals, known for these deep, rich, bombastic fragrances, and often cologne fragrances find it hard to replicate those things exactly. So how does Mirror do in replicating that Amouage smell? Well, it's a superb fragrance. It doesn't smell exactly the same, there are a few differences. It isn't as strong and as potent as the Amouage. It's not quite as natural smelling. It doesn't quite have the same amount of natural depth, but it's still a fairly strong fragrance, definitely not a weak fragrance, and it certainly captures that character, that profile of Reflection 45. One of the things I love most about the Amouage original is that sexy, earthy, dirty quality that brings all that attitude. The Perfume Parlour version doesn't quite have that to the same degree. It is there, but it's a little more rounded out, it's a little more easygoing, it's not quite as edgy, it's not quite as potent. Some people may find the Amouage a little too much, they may find it a little too dirty, a little too edgy. If that's the case, then you may actually prefer the Perfume Parlour version because it is a little more mass appealing, it's a little more easygoing and easy to wear. Because it lacks a little bit of that potency, it might not quite get you noticed, it might not be as statement making as the Amouage, but it still is a really nice smell and has a lot of those compliment getting properties. The other big difference, as we find with a lot of Perfume Parlour fragrances, is the price. The Amouage original is pretty pricey. It's around £400 for a 100ml bottle like this. You might find it in some sales now and then, but the full retail price is, I think, £390. The Perfume Parlour version is Well, it's £8 for this 13mm sprayer. I know it's not 100mm, but it does work out a lot cheaper. And if you want to try it, 13mm is probably enough. And then if you love it, if you really enjoy it, then you can always upgrade to the largest size. I think 50mm is the largest size that Perfume Parlour offer. I love going for these 13mm sprayers because I rarely even use them all up, and they're just great for traveling with. Often, if I'm going on a plane, I'll just look at what Perfume Parlour fragrances I want to bring with me, and these 13mm sprayers just fit in the hand luggage perfectly. As I said, this video is not sponsored by Perfume Parlour. I do love the brand. I think they're an important brand for a lot of people because it is a gateway brand for people to get into fragrances, to smell a lot of interesting and expensive smells that they wouldn't always get to smell. If you do want to check them out, I have an affiliate link. You'll find that in my video description. You can also use code FM10 and that will give you 10% discount. The rating from me on Mirror XLV is a solid 8 out of 10. Not an exact copy of the original, but still an excellent smell. Next is a version of Creed's AVENTUS. This one's called Avalanche Fruity Ultra. Code on this one is 1979. Like AVENTUS, this is bright, citrusy, big dose of pineapple and some heavy woods. Classy as hell. I mean, it smells like AVENTUS. It does smell fruity, it does smell woody. I think it comes across as quite a balanced version of AVENTUS, not too heavy on those smoky woods. The Ultra in the name refers to its strength. I think this is meant to be a stronger version of the original Avalanche, which is Perfume Parlour's original version of AVENTUS. I think we've got quite a few versions going on, but this is meant to be a little stronger. So this is a stronger, fairly balanced version of AVENTUS, which is probably going to appeal to most people. I've been comparing this with my bottle of AVENTUS, which is 2016 and smells pretty similar. In terms of performance, it's also doing a similar job. I'm finding that this Ultra version seems to be on par with the performance, with the projection, with the longevity of my OG AVENTUS. Actually, one difference that I have noticed between this original AVENTUS that I own and Avalanche Fruity Ultra is I think this does lean more into the fruits. It doesn't have the slight smoky quality that this one has. Again, some people prefer the fruitier batches of AVENTUS to the slightly smokier batches. This one is fairly balanced, but I do pick up on the smoky birch more so in this than I do in Avalanche Fruity Ultra. AVENTUS is one of the most popular niche fragrances of all time. It's also pretty pricey. I'm not sure what the current prices are, but yeah, it's getting pricier and pricier every year. So if that is out of your price range, if you're at the stage where you're thinking, you know, Creed are taking the, you might be looking at alternatives, and Perfume Parlour I think are definitely going to offer one of the cheapest alternatives. I picked this 13ml bottle up for £8. I think you can get the 50ml for £22, so definitely more affordable. I think this is great. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. If you wanted an even stronger version of this, Perfume Parlour do offer extract versions of all their fragrances. A little more expensive, but still very cheap and very affordable. But if you did think that this one wasn't strong enough for you, then you could always try the extract. Next up is Only Man for Men. So this one is definitely a masculine fragrance. The product code is 0666, and this one is devilishly good with notes of cardamom, ginger and tobacco. This is a take on Dolce & Gabbana's The One. The original The One from Dolce & Gabbana is a superb scent, very sexy, very mass appealing, and Perfume Parlour absolutely nail it with this one. The scent is bang on, but not only that, it's actually stronger than the original. And not only that, it's even stronger than the EDP. So I have the EDP version, not the EDT. I think Perfume Parlour's version is inspired by the EDT of the original. It doesn't say that it's the EDP, so I'm assuming it's the EDT. And I actually found that Only Man was even a little bit stronger than the EDP, which is a stronger, richer version of the one than the EDT. Yeah, doing good work on the strength of this one, which is good because one of the major complaints about the EDT and even the EDP is that the performance is not the best. It's not horrible, but it's not the best. So anyone who maybe has an issue with the one, if they love the fragrance, but maybe they don't spend the designer prices because the performance isn't quite what they want, then you're going to get a little bit more performance with Perfume Parlour's version. Sometimes with cologne fragrances, you find that whilst they're quite close, they smell maybe a little more synthetic, maybe a little more abrasive. That is definitely not the case with this. The original is a super smooth, very well blended fragrance, and the Perfume Parlour one replicates that perfectly. This is velvety smooth. So pretty much a perfect copy of the original with slightly better performance. The price on this one is £6.50 for this 13ml. I gotta give this one a 10 out of 10. It's really good. The 7th most popular fragrance on Perfume Parlour's website is Immortal for men. The code is 1871, and this is a version of Elysium Pour Homme from Roger Parfums. I gave this one a full wearing and I thought, this is definitely that Elysium smell. And then I tested it side by side with the original, and I gotta say, the Perfume Parlour one is the inferior fragrance. It's not as smooth, which isn't the biggest surprise in the world because Roger fragrances are incredibly well blended. It's one of the things I love most about this brand. And it also doesn't match the depth. The original has a slightly smoky, peppery quality to the woods, and the Perfume Parlour version doesn't really fully recreate that. It gets it a little bit, but it doesn't smell as good as in the Roger. And it doesn't have that same natural smelling Elysium sparkle. It doesn't say on Perfume Parlour's website if this is a take on the original Parfum version of Elysium or if it's the Elysium Parfum Cologne. Obviously I'm testing this side by side with the Parfum Cologne, so perhaps the scent profile of this is closer to the Parfum. I don't know, I don't own that one, so I can't compare it side by side. But even if this is a recreation of the Parfum, it's certainly not as strong as the Parfum Cologne. It's not weak, it's still strong enough, but it's not as strong as this one. Overall, testing these two side by side, it doesn't mimic the original that successfully. It doesn't completely miss the mark. When I wore it without testing it against Elysium, it still definitely gave me the Elysium vibe, so it's not far enough away that it's not gonna make you think of it and remind you of it, and in the air people will probably enjoy it just the same. But if you're looking at comparing something like for like in terms of its scent profile, it doesn't get there as much as other Perfume Parlour fragrances do. So for that reason, I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. Still a nice fragrance to wear, but in terms of a copy, not one of the best. Next up is French Power. This one is so good. Can you have a guess at what this one might be copying? A very famous French fragrance house that has a certain version of a fragrance that is more powerful or maybe more intense. The code on French Power is 0509, and this is Perfume Parlour's take on Dior Homme Intense. French Power, baby! Dior Homme Intense is one of my favourite designer fragrances of all time, and the Perfume Parlour version gets very, very close. Nails that scent profile perfectly. It's got the lipsticky iris, it's got the woods, an excellent interpretation of the Dior. Little difference though, it's not quite as intense as Dior Homme Intense. It's not far off though, it does have an intensity, but just not quite as much as the original. But it's just a little bit, just a little less intense. Because of this, it does smell a little more rounded. I think the chocolatey cacao smell is a little more prominent in French Power than it is in Dior Homme Intense, because the intensity of the woods and the iris is slightly just rounded off on the edges a little bit. The difference between them is that minimal that I thought, am I just being biased towards Dior Homme Intense because I know it's the original? And even though I did give this a full wearing, I was testing them side by side on strips. So I thought just to test myself to see if the original was that little bit more intense. I jumbled up the strips. I blinded myself. Well, I didn't blind myself, I just closed my eyes, so I didn't know which strip was which. I smelled them and I still managed to pick out which the original was because it has that just little edge on the potency. I gave it a full wearing. It lasted well, performance was good. It felt like I was wearing Dior Homme Intense. This 13ml was £7 on Perfume Parlour's website. This is a great one. This is a really good interpretation. So I'm going to give French Power a 9 out of 10. Très bien. The next one is based on a very hyped fragrance that I don't have. It's Tiger from Bulgari, so I can't do a side-by-side comparison on this. I can't tell you what I think of the overall smell though. This is called Panthera. If you're looking for this on the website, you can just type in the product code, which is 1611. Like Tiger, the notes are grapefruit, ambroxan and woods. Even though I don't own Tiger, I have smelled it at the airport. I remember really enjoying it. I did think, what is the big fuss about? It's a sort of nice, fresh, well-rounded, citrusy fragrance. I liked it, but I wouldn't spend the money on that full retail, but good fragrance. So that was a little while ago. Can't really remember too much of the smell in terms of comparing it like for like, but Panthera is good. It's a great fresh fragrance. It's bright, it's citrusy, it has a woody depth. Like I remember from the original, it's quite a simplistic scent, but it smells nice and natural, nice and smooth, has a nice blend on it. Good freshie, thoroughly enjoyed wearing it, has decent performance. I'm gonna give Panthera an 8 out of 10. All right, the next one is based on another Creed, a true classic. This one is called Isle of Ver. Bet you can't guess what it's based on. Code is 0583. We've got notes of lemon verbena, violet leaf, and sandalwood. If you haven't guessed it already, this one is mimicking green Irish tweed. And a good mimic it is too. Nails that freshly cut grass kind of smell. It smells sophisticated, classy, gentlemanly. If you tested them side by side, you'd maybe find that green Irish tweed is a little thicker, a little denser, maybe a little more potent. But in the air, I don't think anyone's really going to tell a difference. Absolutely gets the green Irish tweed DNA. I picked this 13ml sprayer up for £6.50. Just to give you a direct price comparison, 50ml of green Irish tweed from Creed online is selling at anywhere between 170, 190. Perfume Parlour's 50ml bottle is £15.50. If Creed prices are too much for you, or if you've never smelled green Irish tweed and you want to smell a cheaper version of it to know if you like it and then maybe go on to buy the original, then you could try Isle of Ver. I think it would give you a very good idea of green Irish tweed. And that's the other thing about Perfume Parlour actually, which happened to me and I think has happened to a lot of people. I've mentioned that they're like a gateway brand, so often I've bought the Perfume Parlour version, loved it so much that I've wanted the actual original bottle on the shelf. So we're in a situation where Perfume Parlour's getting my money and then I'm supporting the original brand, they're also getting my money. So I think sometimes these clone fragrance dupe copy houses, they can coexist, they can have this sort of mutually beneficial existence. Let me know if Perfume Parlour's like that for you. One of my favourite niche houses is Parfum de Marly because they make such strong beast mode, natural smelling fragrances. My favourite from PDM is Carlisle. Perfume Parlour have a version, this is called Pennine. Pennine's code is 1008. Notes are green apple, nutmeg, tonka bean, patchouli and vanilla. Parfum de Marly makes some big fragrances and Carlisle has probably got to be one of their biggest. It's got depth, it's got potency, it's got a very natural smell that must be pretty hard to reproduce. Perfume Parlour have had a good go though with Pennine. It's about 75% there. It doesn't quite have the woody intensity of Carlisle. It doesn't smell as natural. It doesn't quite match the radiance of the original, but it's a commendable effort. Based on what I just said, it tracks that the performance also isn't as good as with Carlisle. Carlisle is a beast mode fragrance, and whilst the performance on this is good, it's definitely not beast mode. In its own right, it's an excellent fragrance. Compared to Carlisle, it's, well, kind of like Carlisle light. It gets the smell of Carlisle, but it's a slightly more faded version, I think, is a good way of putting it. Great smell, not the best copy, 7 out of 10. Okay, here we go. This is number 2, and it's an example of Perfume Parlour nailing it 100%. Sensible. The code is 1270 and this is a copy of Dior Sauvage. In terms of smell, side by side, I can't really tell them apart. That beautiful, fresh, powdery quality of Sauvage is right there. Performance seems the same, so strong, very noticeable. Sauvage is one of the best selling fragrances like ever, so it's no surprise that Sensible is right up there as the number 2 bestseller for Perfume Parlour. I actually got invited not so long ago on the popular BBC podcast Sliced Bread. They wanted to get my opinion on fragrances and clone fragrances. In the podcast, the host wears Sauvage, another clone, I forget which one, and Sensible, Perfume Parlour's version, and then without them knowing, he asked his friends which one they preferred out of the 3, and they picked Perfume Parlour's version. Who knew? So this could be an example of the clone actually bettering the original. Anyway, it's a great listen. If you've not listened to it already, I will post the link to the podcast in the description on this video. This is a really good one. I've got to give it a 10. The number one bestseller for Perfume Parlour is another version of Creed's AVENTUS. This one is called Avalanche Fruity. The code on the website is 0022. Again, it's easily identifiable as AVENTUS, definitely gets that AVENTUS DNA. I don't know which batch this one is emulating. I'm guessing it's a more fruity one. It smells a little more rounded than Avalanche Fruity Ultra, but not quite as strong. It doesn't quite match the performance of my original bottle of AVENTUS. I'm actually surprised that Fruity Ultra isn't higher than this, because I just would have thought people would go for the stronger, pumped up version of AVENTUS. I think the reason might be though that this one smells a little more natural, maybe it's a little more balanced. So my recommendation would be, if you want Perfume Parlour's best interpretation of AVENTUS, if you want the best sort of smell combined with the best performance, get this one, try this, the 0022 Avalanche Fruity, but also purchase the oil version. They do offer this in lots of different products. I think they do shower gel, but they also do oils as well as the extract. So you could try the extract, but I think if you try this EDP with the oil, which is about, I don't know, £3 for 3 ml, £6 for 6 ml, so it's pretty cheap. Try that, because a friend of mine was wearing Avalanche in oil form, not the spray, just the oil on its own. He applied it. It filled the whole building that we were in. It smelled really strong. It smells stronger than my normal bottle of AVENTUS. So if you want the best sort of smell with the best performance, try this with the roll-on oil. You're going to get the best of both worlds in terms of the smell, the projection and the longevity, because of course the oil will probably last a little bit longer on your skin. If you are purchasing any version of AVENTUS, even original AVENTUS, just be aware that the wearer can experience a fading of this fragrance. They can feel like it's stopped performing, like they can't smell it on themselves. They think it's faded away. Other people around them will tell them that they can still smell it, and it actually smells pretty strong. So if you get that with any of the Perfume Parlour Avalanches or even the original, there is a little bit of annoying nose blindness that just seems to come along with that AVENTUS DNA. So yeah, do bear that in mind if you're buying any of these Avalanches. But it's the same with the original as it is with the copies, just the way it is with AVENTUS. I give this one 8 out of 10. All right, there you go. There are my ratings on the top 10 bestsellers from Perfume Parlour. Don't forget, there is an affiliate link in the video description. Click through there, have a look at Perfume Parlour's website. If you do, helps me out a little bit, helps me fund the channel, keep it going, and you get to smell some nice fragrances for not a lot of money. Let me know which your favourites are from Perfume Parlour. There's some absolute bangers that I've had over the years that haven't appeared in this top 10 bestseller list. So if you want to see a video on what my current top 10 best ones are, just let me know and drop yours down there in the description. I would love to hear from you. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, consider giving it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you do all that, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.